Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive, really getting into a topic that, well, it weaves its way through nearly every culture on Earth. It's often shrouded in ancient tradition, whispered fears, superstitions, and folk beliefs. But our journey today isn't just a broad look. We're examining it through a remarkably precise and very clear lens, the comprehensive rulings of Islam. You've provided us with some truly fascinating material, really delving into core Islamic principles, rich historical context, and, well, a whole array of specific cultural examples from around the globe. Our mission today really is to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources. We want to help you, our listener, grasp not just what Islam says about superstition, but the profound why behind its stance, and of course, the deeply personal implications for believers.
It's truly insightful, isn't it, to see how these rulings are so intricately woven into the foundational tenets of the faith. They don't exist in a vacuum. Instead, they offer a coherent, deeply philosophical framework for understanding many practices that maybe on the surface might appear to be purely cultural. We'll definitely be connecting these dots for you, revealing just how deeply rooted these concepts are within Islamic thought.
Yeah, from the ancient practice of seeking omens and the allure of lucky charms to the forbidden arts of fortune-telling and the persistence of specific regional customs. We're going to try and explore it all. Get ready for some genuine aha moments, I think, and perhaps even a few surprises about the resilience of these beliefs across diverse societies. So, let's embark on this journey together, becoming truly well-informed on this crucial and, let's be honest, often misunderstood subject. Right. So to truly grasp Islam's perspective on superstition, we absolutely must begin at its core with its foundational theological principles. Our sources consistently highlight four key concepts that form this bedrock. First among them, and, well, arguably the most fundamental, is Tawhid. Now, as many of you know, Tawhid is the absolute unyielding principle of Islamic belief, the oneness and singularity of Allah. Its Arabic root, wadat, literally signifies unity. And this isn't merely a theological concept. It is, in essence, the very cornerstone of a Muslim's faith. It's the central pillar upon which the entire edifice of Islam is built. It asserts a pure, unadulterated monotheism, where all power, all control, and indeed all destiny resides solely with the Creator, Allah. There's simply no other deity worthy of worship, no other force capable of independent action, save Allah alone. So why is this principle so critically important for our discussion on superstition? Well, here's the profound implication. The moment any power, any influence, or any inherent causality is attributed to anything other than Allah, be it a physical object like a charm, a specific number, a star, a place, a time, or even a seemingly random event, it directly infringes upon and actually violates this core tenet of Tawhid. Think about it. If, for instance, you carry a specific item, believing it possesses an intrinsic power to bring you good fortune or avert harm, you are, by that very act, assigning an independent power to that created object. You are basically claiming it has a say in your destiny. Similarly, if you actively avoid a certain number or a particular day, or maybe a specific animal because you believe it carries bad luck, you're effectively granting that number, day, or animal an independent influence over your well-being.
And that diminishes Allah's exclusive authority. This fundamentally undermines the exclusive right of Allah to be recognized as the sole source of all benefit and all harm, which is, the entire framework of Islamic belief, worship, and law.
Right. And to connect this to the bigger picture, you see that this isn't merely a social guideline or like cultural preference. It's a direct and unavoidable consequence of upholding pure monotheism. Tawhid necessitates that our hearts and minds acknowledge only one ultimate power, one ultimate cause. Any deviation from this, however subtle it might initially appear, well, it represents a direct challenge to that singular focus. In essence, the strength of one's tawhid is measured by how completely one subordinates all perceived powers to the absolute power of Allah.
Okay, so building directly upon that principle of Tawhid, its absolute antithesis is shirk. This Arabic term signifies associating partners with Allah, and our sources unequivocally describe it as the gravest sin in Islam. Shirk manifests in two primary forms. First, there's major shirk, or shirk akbar. This involves clear, overt acts like worshiping idols, calling upon other entities for help, or believing that created beings possess independent control over the universe. This form of shirk is so severe that it can, according to Islamic belief, expel a person from the fold of faith and actually nullify all their good deeds. Then we have minor shirk, or shirk asgar. Now, while this form doesn't lead to outright apostasy, it is nonetheless a deeply serious sin. It corrupts one's acts of worship and diminishes the purity and quality of one's faith. Examples often cited include things like swearing by something other than Allah, or performing acts of worship purely for human praise rather than for all's pleasure, or, engaging in various forms of showing off. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for a discussion on superstition. Our sources explain in quite a bit of detail how believing that, say, a broken mirror inherently brings bad luck, or that a specific charm provides genuine protection, is directly and powerfully linked to shirk. It's about attributing an independent power to something inanimate. The mirror, the charm, a power that, according to Tawhid, belongs to Allah alone. It's not necessarily outright worship in the same way as major shirk, but it effectively places a created thing on par with Allah's ultimate influence in its ability to affect events. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, explicitly and unequivocally stated, a belief in omens, diyata, is shirk. This isn't just a casual statement. It's a profound warning that categorizes superstitious belief as a subtle yet dangerous form of polytheism.
That's a critical point, and it really raises an important question for believers. While it might not lead to outright apostasy, minor shirk, especially when it manifests as superstition, fundamentally weakens the purity of Tawhid. It's a subtle form of polytheism, as our sources describe it, a kind of spiritual erosion that gradually diverts a person's heart away from their creator and toward created things. Consider that even seemingly harmless superstitions, like avoiding walking under a ladder, they're problematic. Why? Because they reflect an internal psychological state where cause and effect are attributed to an object or an event that actually has no true power. This progressive weakening of one's core belief in Allah's sole power and authority is precisely why it's considered a matter of such profound concern in Islamic jurisprudence. Ultimately, you could say, every superstitious act is like a whisper of doubt, diverting the heart's true worship from Allah towards creation.
Right, so if Tawhid is the absolute foundation and shirk is its direct opposite, then tawakkul represents the natural, beautiful extension. It's the practical way a believer lives out the implications of Tawhid in their daily life. Tawakkul means placing complete reliance and unwavering trust in Allah. Now, it's crucial to understand that tawakkul doesn't imply passivity or, a lack of effort. Not at all. On the contrary, a Muslim is commanded to strive, to take all necessary and permissible worldly means, to work diligently, and to plan thoughtfully. But, and this is the absolutely crucial distinction, their ultimate faith, their deepest dependency, and their profound peace must be anchored solely upon Allah. Why? Because He is, and remains, the sole source of all benefit and all harm. The Quran emphasizes this spiritual state repeatedly, stating, and upon Allah let the believers rely. It's a profound spiritual condition, really, where your heart finds its ultimate anchor in divine trust. Okay, now let's connect this directly to superstition. How does superstition fit into this framework? Well, superstition, in all its forms, represents a direct assault on the principle of tawakkul. Instead of fostering a firm, unshakable trust in Allah's divine decree, it replaces that serenity with, baseless anxiety over meaningless events and arbitrary objects. Consider this scenario. A person who refrains from undertaking an important journey or initiating a new venture because a black cat crossed their path. They haven't just attributed an independent power to the cat, thereby violating Tawhid, as we discussed. They have more profoundly failed to place their full trust in Allah's overarching plan and His divine protection. This act creates a kind of spiritual vulnerability, allowing doubt, fear, and apprehension to insidiously creep into the heart. It leads a person away from their proper reliance on Allah and towards a misguided, ultimately futile dependence on created things. So what does this all truly mean for us? It means superstition isn't just an external act or some quaint cultural habit. It's a profound internal corruption that directly damages your heart's essential connection to Allah. It shifts your inner state from one of profound peace and reliance to one of apprehension, uncertainty, and fear, all based on things that possess no true power whatsoever. In essence, you could say, tawakkul replaces baseless anxiety with unwavering peace, anchoring the believer solely in divine trust.
And beyond the serious implications of shirk, many superstitious practices also fall squarely under another important category in Islam, bid'ah, or religious innovation. Bid'ah is precisely defined as a newly invented belief or action that is introduced into the religion, for which there is absolutely no authentic evidence or precedent in the Quran, Allah's revealed word, or in the Sunnah, which encompasses the teachings, practices, and approvals of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Right, and it's vital to make a clear distinction here, isn't it? Innovations in sacred matters, things like inventing a new form of prayer or adding a new pillar to Islam or altering a prescribed ritual, those are generally forbidden. But innovations in mundane affairs, things that don't directly pertain to worship or fundamental religious doctrine, are often permissible, provided they don't contradict established Islamic law, like, new technologies or ways of organizing society.
Exactly. The core problem arises when numerous cultural superstitions acquire what our sources call a religious veneer, effectively transforming them into prohibited bidah. Let's take an example. The belief in not sweeping the floor at night to avoid shooing away fortune. That's an old pre-Islamic idea, common in many societies. But if someone then asserts that this practice is forbidden because it disturbs the angels or offends the spirits of the house, well, they've taken a mere cultural belief and imbued it with a false religious justification. By doing so, they've created an innovation in a religious matter, which is bidah.
Interesting. And our sources mention another one, like a Lebanese cultural practice of a bride smashing dough on a wall to ensure a successful marriage. Culturally significant, maybe, but absolutely no basis or sanction in Islamic teachings.
Precisely. And when such practices are presented or perceived as ways to draw closer to Allah, or to obtain His favor, or to gain spiritual benefit, they immediately become a form of bid'ah. And what's truly fascinating here is this pervasive cultural integration we see. We find instances where phrases from the Quran might be inscribed on talismans, or misfortune is attributed to jinn, these unseen beings in Islamic belief, in ways that actually fall outside mainstream understanding. This process dangerously blurs the lines and ultimately weakens the purity of Tawhid. Historically, Muslim societies have indeed grappled with the significant challenge of integrating diverse pre-Islamic beliefs and folklores with orthodox religious doctrine.
Like the pre-Islamic era beliefs about owls bringing bad luck or the month of Safar being inherently unlucky.
Exactly. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, explicitly rejected those practices rooted in ancient mythology. Yet, over centuries, many of these deeply ingrained beliefs weren't entirely abandoned. They were subtly reimagined, kind of integrated with Islamic concepts, creating a complex, often syncretic worldview. This blurring of lines between deeply ingrained traditions and authentic religious principles can, without careful distinction, lead to a spiritual weakening and a dangerous deviation from the purity of Tawhid.
Okay, so with those foundational principles, Tawhid, Shirk, Tawakkul, Bid'ah firmly in mind, let's pivot now. Let's turn to some more direct condemnations found within Islam, particularly concerning the ancient practices of magic and fortune-telling. These aren't just minor cultural quirks or misunderstandings. They are explicitly and severely addressed in both the Quran and the Hadith, the authentic narrations of the Prophet Muhammad's sayings and actions. And they leave virtually no room for ambiguity. Hashtag 2.1, magic, sir, in the Quran. Right. The Quran provides an exceptionally clear and definitive stance on the practice of magic, or sir. Our sources specifically point to Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 102, as a pivotal verse. It recounts a profound and frankly cautionary story about how people during the reign of Prophet Solomon mistakenly followed what the devils falsely propagated as magic. The verse meticulously clarifies that Solomon himself never disbelieved or practiced magic. Rather, it was the devils who committed disbelief by actively teaching men magic. It further mentions two angels, Harut and Marut, who were sent to Babylon as a severe trial. These angels taught magic, but always with an explicit warning stating, "We are but a trial, so do not disbelieve by practicing magic." Now, this single verse establishes several absolutely critical theological and legal points for us. Firstly, it explicitly declares that the practice of magic is an act of disbelief, or kufr, and is unequivocally the work of devils. This important clarification also absolves Prophet Solomon, peace be upon him, from any false accusations made against him regarding magic. Secondly, the verse confirms that magic isn't merely illusion or trickery. It is a real phenomenon that possesses the potential to cause tangible harm. It even gives an example of its destructive power, specifically mentioning its ability to separate a man from his wife. However, and this is the most crucial point for any believer, the verse emphatically affirms that magic has no independent power. It can only cause harm by Allah's leave, that is, solely with His explicit permission and His divine will. This distinction is profoundly significant.
Absolutely. That concept of Allah's leave is paramount. It means that while magic is acknowledged as real, capable of causing harm, a believer who places their complete trust in Allah is ultimately safeguarded. Why? Because absolutely nothing, not even magic, can happen outside of His divine will. This understanding provides immense reassurance and really strengthens tawakkul.
And the verse also delivers a severe and stark warning, doesn't it?
It does. Those who engage in magic would have no share in the hereafter. That's a deeply troubling prognosis. It indicates an eternal loss for those who deliberately choose such a malevolent and spiritually destructive path. It really underscores the extreme gravity of engaging in magic. The ultimate takeaway here is that magic, as an act of disbelief, leads to eternal loss. Hashtag 2.2. Soothsaying and fortune-telling, kahan.
Okay, so if magic is so gravely condemned, then it follows that soothsaying, fortune-telling, and all forms of divination, collectively known as kahana, are similarly and categorically prohibited in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, issued some incredibly stern warnings against these practices that leave absolutely no doubt about the Islamic position. One particularly powerful hadith states, "He who goes to a soothsayer or a diviner and believes what he says has disbelieved in what was revealed to Muhammad." I mean, that is an incredibly strong and direct statement, equating belief in a soothsayer's claims with a rejection of the core message of Islam itself. But the warning becomes even more direct, perhaps more immediate, for the everyday believer, right? Another hadith adds a further layer of consequence. Whoever goes to a soothsayer and asks him about something, his prayers will not be accepted for 40 days.
Exactly. These are not mild warnings. These are incredibly potent statements, even for merely seeking information from such individuals, even without necessarily believing them.
Wow, that really demonstrates how gravely Islam views even just consulting fortune tellers.
It does. Because it opens a dangerous door to potential disbelief and the corruption of one's faith. And the fundamental reason for this stringent prohibition lies in the very nature of soothsaying. Such individuals invariably claim to possess knowledge of the unseen, or al-ghaiba. And al-ghaiba is an exclusive and singular attribute of Allah alone. The Quran explicitly states, "Say, none in the heavens and the earth has knowledge of the unseen except Allah." It's a divine prerogative. Even the Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, didn't possess this independent knowledge, as we'll touch on more. Soothsayers and fortune tellers often claim to get their information from the jinn, these unseen beings created from smokeless fire, existing in a parallel realm. These jinn might eavesdrop on heavenly matters, but then they inevitably mix whatever truth they hear with 100 lies and distortions to deceive people.
So it's inherently unreliable at best.
And worse than unreliable, it's fundamentally a form of major shirk. It entails an alliance with devils and a direct claim to a divine attribute knowledge of the unseen. It is for this profound theological reason that the punishment for a soothsayer or a magician in traditional Islamic law can be as severe as execution, because they are considered to have rejected the very core tenets of their faith. The ultimate insight here. Claiming knowledge of the unseen is a direct affront to Allah's exclusive domain. Hashtag 2.3, the Islamic perspective on the unseen. Al-Ghab.
Right. And this concept of the unseen Al-Ghab, it's not just a side detail, is it? It's absolutely central to Islam's comprehensive critique of all forms of superstition and divination. Our sources meticulously reiterate that knowledge of this hidden domain is a unique and singular attribute belonging solely to Allah. In Surah Al-Jinn verses 627, the Quran emphatically states, "He alone knows the unseen, nor does he make anyone acquainted with his mysteries except an apostle whom he chooses."
That verse unambiguously confirms it. Only Allah possesses this ultimate knowledge. And while he may choose to reveal specific fragments of it to his selected messengers, he certainly does not grant it to anyone else, and most definitely not to human fortune tellers, astrologers, or diviners. This foundational principle renders all claims by astrologers, numerologists, palm readers, and soothsayers utterly baseless and a direct violation of Islamic monotheism.
It really puts things into perspective.
It does, and it raises that absolutely important question that cannot be overstated. If even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the most beloved of creation, the recipient of divine revelation, if even he didn't possess independent knowledge of the unseen, how can any fortune teller or any regular human possibly claim to? Relying on horoscopes or numerology or psychic readings is therefore a profoundly misguided attempt to access forbidden knowledge. It's a clear form of shirk.
And the Quran even warns against the human desire for this knowledge, right?
Yes, in Surah Al-Araf, verse 188, Allah instructs the Prophet Muhammad to explicitly say, "If I had known the unknown, I would have benefited myself enormously, and no harm would have ever touched me." Eat, see. This powerful verse serves as a crucial reminder that even the Prophet himself was limited in this regard. It's a clear and unequivocal indicator that seeking such knowledge outside of what Allah has explicitly revealed is an attempt to encroach upon divine exclusivity. It is, by definition, a form of shirk. The deep insight here is that true spiritual peace comes from accepting our human limits and trusting Allah's exclusive knowledge.
Okay, let's now delve into something we all encounter, I think, in one form or another. Omens. You know, that fleeting feeling you get when you see a black cat cross your path or maybe accidentally break a mirror. Islam, with its characteristic clarity, offers a nuanced but ultimately very clear distinction here between what is strictly forbidden and what is actually encouraged as a healthy spiritual disposition. Right. So, the term tiara, it's originally derived from the Arabic word for birds, khair. Historically, it referred to the pre-Islamic Arab practice of seeking omens from the flight patterns of birds. However, in a broader Islamic context, tiara has come to encompass any superstitious belief in bad omens, whether they arise from something seen, something heard, or something experienced. This includes a whole array of common superstitions. The belief that a black cat crossing one's path signifies impending misfortune, that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck, or even an owl's hoot being a harbinger of ill tidings. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was absolutely categorical in his condemnation, wasn't he?
He was, stating, as we touched on earlier, tiara, superstitious belief in omens, is shirk.
So why such severity? What are the fundamental reasons?
Well, it's deeply rooted in Islamic theology. Such beliefs directly contradict tawakkul, our complete and unwavering trust in Allah and the Islamic understanding of divine decree, or qadar. When a person abandons a plan or postpones a task or alters their course of action because of a perceived bad omen, they are, in essence, attributing an independent, unseen power to a created thing to influence their fate, and that directly violates their profound trust in Allah's absolute control.
And the Prophet also rejected the idea that certain times or phenomena were inherently unlucky.
Yes, he explicitly rejected the belief that certain natural phenomena or even specific periods of time, like the month of Safar, inherently carried bad luck. He stated, "There is no evil omen in the month of Safar." For a Muslim, the proper and prescribed response to experiencing a superstitious thought isn't to succumb to it with fear or anxiety, but rather to place full trust in Allah and proceed with their plans.
And there's even a specific supplication, a dua, taught by the Prophet to counter such feelings.
Yes, exactly. O Allah, there is no good except for your goodness, and there is no evil except that you have decreed it, and there is no deity in truth to be worshipped other than you.
So this isn't about ignoring reality or being reckless. It's about actively framing reality through the lens of absolute and unshakable trust in Allah. It represents a powerful, transformative shift in mindset, really, moving away from baseless fear and superstition towards unwavering certainty and divine control. The core insight seems to be, tiara is shirk because it attributes power to creation, thereby eroding trust in the Creator. Okay, so in beautiful and direct contrast to that strict prohibition of bad omens, tiara, Islam actually encourages something called fa'al, which can be understood as what? Cultivating optimism based on a good word or a positive sign.
Precisely. Cultivating optimism based on a good word, a positive sign, or a pleasant anticipation. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself articulated this distinction. He said, "There is no evil omen, and I am pleased by a good omen, and a good omen is a good word." This clearly distinguishes fall from tiara as something positive and beneficial.
But the key distinction here is absolutely crucial and I think often misunderstood. Fall is not a belief in a direct cause and effect relationship, right? Like the good sign doesn't cause the good outcome.
Exactly right. It's not cause and effect. Rather, it's a spiritual practice meticulously designed to strengthen one's faith and increase positive thoughts about Allah's mercy and benevolence. The Prophet's own life provides a perfect example. When Suhail ibn Amr came to negotiate the crucial treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet took his name, which means ease or smooth, as a good sign, an indication that the difficult affairs of the treaty would indeed be made easy. He didn't believe that the name itself caused the ease, but rather that Allah had sent a sign, a kind of positive cue, to instill hope and optimism in the hearts of the believers present. It's about nurturing a positive disposition, a hopeful outlook, and seeing signs of Allah's goodness in the world around us.
So it's more about mindset and reinforcing trust.
Exactly. If we consider this from a broader perspective, fall is fundamentally about cultivating a positive spiritual disposition. It's a mindset that consciously acknowledges that all good ultimately emanates from Allah, actively choosing optimism in His divine decree. It powerfully reinforces tawakkul, helping a person maintain a hopeful and constructive outlook, which is really a hallmark of the Islamic worldview. This stands in stark contrast to the fear, anxiety, and pessimism inherently associated with tiara. It's about being attuned to the signs of Allah's goodness and mercy, allowing that to fill your heart with gratitude and renewed trust in His benevolent plan. So the ultimate insight, fall is a spiritual practice that strengthens tawakkul by cultivating optimism and hope in Allah's goodness. Hashtag 3.3, correcting misguided beliefs.
Despite these incredibly clear distinctions and categorical condemnations within Islamic teachings, the pervasive prevalence of superstitions, particularly within many Muslim-majority regions, it stands as a powerful testament to the enduring hold of folklore and deeply entrenched cultural traditions. It's an undeniable reality. You witness these beliefs everywhere, even when the religious prohibitions are crystal clear in the texts, which really begs the question, why? Why do these beliefs persist with such tenacity?
Well, they're often transmitted implicitly through generations, aren't they? Becoming deeply ingrained, almost like second nature. It's powerful cultural conditioning.
So what's the solution? Our sources consistently highlight that it's not just passive awareness, but an active, diligent seeking of authentic knowledge and profound understanding.
Absolutely. This involves not only learning the precise Islamic rulings, but also actively working to replace a superstitious mindset with one anchored in profound faith and unwavering reliance on Allah. It's a call to action, really, an encouragement to be brave, trust in Allah, and push ahead with your plans and endeavors, regardless of what perceived omens you might encounter or what old wives' tales might whisper.
So instead of reacting with fear, the encouragement is to consciously respond with sincere prayers, seeking refuge in Allah and reaffirming His supreme power.
Exactly. And what's truly fascinating here, and indeed is a significant challenge, is that this isn't a failure of Islamic teaching itself. The teaching is exceptionally clear on these matters. Rather, it represents a challenge in its proper application and embodiment. It's about ensuring that proper education and deep understanding effectively displace deeply entrenched pre-Islamic beliefs and generational customs. The paradox of superstition's widespread cultural prevalence, even in societies where it is strictly forbidden religiously, highlights the central and ongoing challenge. It's not a failure of the religion, but a practical hurdle in educating and helping communities truly embody its principles, especially when these deeply ingrained traditions often become intertwined with a person's very identity. The solution, therefore, lies in making tawhid and tawakkul living, breathing realities, not just abstract theological concepts. The core insight: overcoming superstition requires active knowledge, unwavering trust, and conscious effort to displace those generational beliefs.
Okay, we've talked extensively about omens, the difference between forbidden tiara and encouraged fall. But what about those physical objects people wear, or carry, or keep in their homes for what they believe is luck or protection? Amulets and charms are incredibly common across cultures, but what is the definitive Islamic ruling on them? Before we dive into that specific ruling, though, we need to clarify one crucial phenomenon: the reality of the evil eye, hashtag 4.1. The reality of the evil eye, Aleen. Right. Our sources make a clear and important distinction here. Unlike baseless omens, the evil eye, or Aleen, is considered a genuine phenomenon in Islam. It's something explicitly confirmed by authentic hadith. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stated, "The influence of an evil eye is a fact. If anything would precede the destiny, it would be the influence of an evil eye." He also provided clear instructions to his followers on how to seek refuge from it through specific supplications, thereby confirming its tangible, albeit divinely permitted, effect. It's generally understood as a harmful effect caused by a jealous, envious, or even sometimes an admiring person's gaze that can, with Allah's permission, cause misfortune or harm. Now, that particular hadith about the evil eye potentially preceding destiny, that might at first glance seem to contradict the absolute nature of divine decree, qadar.
It could seem that way. However, our sources meticulously explain that this phrasing is a powerful rhetorical device. It's used to emphasize the evil eye's potent effect within the overarching framework of Allah's permission, not as an independent force operating outside of His divine will. It simply illustrates that even such a potent and real phenomenon is still fundamentally part of the divine plan, and therefore ultimate protection against it, or anything else for that matter, comes exclusively from Allah alone.
That's a critical clarification.
It is. And this nuance raises an important question for how we approach protection. While the evil eye is indeed real and its effects are acknowledged in Islam, the prescribed solution is always through sincere reliance on Allah, tawakkul, and specific divinely taught supplications, dua. It's not through resorting to physical objects or charms. This is absolutely crucial because it firmly redirects the believer's focus back to the Creator as the ultimate and only protector, rather than placing hope or fear in any created object or human-devised ritual. The profound insight here: the evil eye is real, but protection comes solely from Allah through dua and tawakkul, not charms. Hashtag 4.2. The definitive ruling on amulets, Tamaim.
Okay, so with the reality of the evil eye confirmed, but the solution clarified as trust in Allah, what about amulets themselves, the tama'im? An amulet, or tamima, is precisely defined as any object. Could be a pearl, a bone, a bead, a piece of string, a ring, anything similar worn specifically for the supposed purpose of warding off evil, repelling misfortune, or bringing good fortune.
And the Islamic stance on this widespread practice is unequivocally clear. A hadith narrated by Uqba ibn Amir records the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stating with strong admonition, "Whoever wears an amulet, may Allah not fulfill his need, and whoever wears a seashell, may Allah not give him peace."
That's quite a strong statement. And there's another one about allegiance.
Yes, the severity is further highlighted in another narration, when a man wearing an amulet came to pledge his oath of allegiance to the prophet. The prophet refused to accept his pledge until the man removed the amulet. Upon its removal, the prophet then declared whoever wears an amulet has committed shirk.
Wow. Committed shirk. So based on these clear prohibitions, what's the scholarly consensus?
Well, Islamic scholars are virtually unanimous in their consensus that any amulet containing items other than explicit Quranic verses or authentic supplications, things like pearls, bones, specific colored strings, rings, whatever is unequivocally forbidden, haram, and constitutes a clear act of shirk. The reasoning is crystal clear. Such practices are based on the belief that these inanimate objects possess some special, independent power to ward off problems or attract good. And that notion is a blatant form of polytheism, directly contradicting the core principles of Tawhid and Tawakkul.
Okay, but what about the tricky part? The amulets that do contain Quranic verses or Allah's names. There's some debate there, right?
There is, yes. It's worth noting there's a nuanced scholarly debate regarding those. Some early scholars, like Abdullah ibn Imam ibn al-Az, and even a report attributed to Imam Ahmad, held the view that such amulets might be permissible. They often liken them to a form of ruqya, which is the legitimate recitation of Quranic verses or authentic supplications for healing or protection.
But that's not the majority view.
No, a more cautious and indeed widely accepted position held by prominent companions like Ibn Masud and Ibn Abbas and the vast majority of later jurists is that even these so-called Quranic amulets are generally forbidden.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit further. Why forbid them if they contain sacred text? What's the principle?
The majority position is largely based on the crucial Islamic legal principle of Sad al-Darya. It literally means blocking the means to an end. It's a fascinating and incredibly practical example of how Islamic jurisprudence looks beyond the immediate action to meticulously consider its potential consequences, all in an effort to safeguard the absolute purity of core belief, the Aqidah.
So what are the specific means being blocked? What are the risks?
Well, the primary reasons articulated for prohibiting even Quranic amulets are multifaceted. Firstly, allowing them might inadvertently encourage people to wear non-Quranic amulets, blurring the lines and making it hard to distinguish. Secondly, and perhaps more profoundly, it can cause people to become psychologically and spiritually attached to the physical object itself, rather than cultivating a direct, unwavering reliance on the words of Allah or Allah himself. And thirdly, it regrettably opens a dangerous door for deception by false scholars or charlatans who might mix genuine Quranic verses with spurious incantations or fabricated claims for personal gain or influence.
That makes sense. Protecting the core belief.
Exactly. Therefore, the view of outright prohibition is considered the safest, most precautionary approach to protect the creed from any potential corruption and to maintain the absolute purity of Tawhid. The ultimate insight here, even with good intentions, amulets risk shifting reliance from Allah to a created object, making their prohibition a vital safeguard for Tawhid. Hashtag 4.3. Specific examples of cultural charms.
Okay, so this definitive ruling against amulets has direct and significant implications for numerous popular cultural practices we see worldwide. Let's take the Nazar Bonku, the Turkish evil eye bead. It's a prime example, isn't it? This distinctive blue eye charm is ubiquitous in Turkish culture and surrounding regions. You see it everywhere, worn as jewelry, on clothing, even embedded in buildings or hanging in cars. Its alleged purpose: to ward off evil, protect against ill wishes, the evil eye.
But our sources clearly and unequivocally state that this is a direct example of a prohibited talisman. Its use directly violates the fundamental Islamic principle that all protection emanates solely from Allah, not from a piece of colored glass or any other created object, regardless of its cultural significance.
And similarly, the Hand of Fatima, also known as the Kamsa, that's another incredibly popular charm, especially in the Maghreb region and parts of the Middle East. It's that ancient symbol, often an open right hand, widely believed to bring good luck, provide protection, ward off evil.
Right. And despite its often benign cultural associations, and even its name linking it to a revered figure, Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, its use as a protective talisman is unequivocally forbidden in Islam for the exact same reason. It attributes an independent power to a created object which, as we've thoroughly established, constitutes a clear form of shirk. These examples vividly illustrate how deeply rooted cultural practices can, and often do, clash directly with fundamental Islamic theological principles.
Okay, so we've laid out the core theological principles, examined the direct condemnations, and even looked at specific types of charms. But how do these profound concepts actually manifest and play out in the daily lives of people? Our sources provide us with some incredibly vivid regional examples, powerfully demonstrating the enduring hold of folklore and traditional beliefs, even in societies where Islamic teachings are widely known and, ostensibly followed.
Right.
In the Arab world, many superstitions are often deeply rooted in pre-Islamic folklore and ancient mythologies that predate Islam by centuries. And many of these beliefs, remarkably, persist today, passed down through generations, often in direct conflict with clear Islamic teachings. One of the most widespread and seemingly innocuous examples is the belief that leaving a shoe upside down brings bad luck or is a sign of disrespect.
I've heard that one.
Our sources tell us this notion stretches back thousands of years to ancient Egypt, where an upturned shoe was symbolically seen as an insult to the gods above. The Islamic framework, attributing a spiritual outcome or misfortune to an inanimate object like a shoe, is considered a form of minor shirk and a clear erosion of tawakkul. It just has no basis in the Quran or Sunnah. And there are others, like whistling indoors.
Yes, the superstition surrounding whistling inside a house, often believed to invite malevolent jinn or the devil into the home, bringing misfortune. While whistling itself is mundane, imbuing it with a specific spiritual cause and effect, claiming it attracts negative entities, immediately renders it a religious innovation, a bid'ah, as it completely lacks any textual basis.
What about pouring hot water down drains?
Yes, the belief in not pouring hot water directly down a drain without first saying Bismillah in the name of Allah. This is often linked to the fear of harming or angering a spirit or jinn residing in the pipes. Now, there might be a very practical, mundane origin, perhaps avoiding damage to older plumbing, but it's become deeply imbued with supernatural significance.
And eye twitching, that's a common one too.
Incredibly common. The belief that an involuntary eye twitch signifies money coming if the right eye twitches, or money going if the left eye twitches. This likely stems from an ancient pre-Islamic pessimistic association of the left side with bad luck and the right with good, but again, absolutely no Islamic basis. Attributing knowledge of the future, even about personal finances, to a mere bodily reaction is a form of minor shirk and tiara. It violates the principle that only Allah knows the unseen.
This pervasive nature across the Arab world really illustrates a profound tension, doesn't it, between deeply ingrained cultural norms and the crystal clear teachings of Islam.
It really does. Here, even common, everyday acts become imbued with religious or supernatural meaning, often against explicit Islamic guidance. It starkly highlights just how powerful cultural conditioning can be, often leading individuals to hold beliefs that directly contradict the fundamental monotheistic principles of their faith.
Okay, let's shift focus now to South and Southeast Asia. Superstitions here seem to exhibit a similarly strong syncretic character. Our sources describe how ancient folk beliefs in these regions have often merged, sometimes quite subtly, with what they term a superficial Islamic veneer. The belief in not sweeping the floor at night is a widespread example here, too.
Right, and in some areas it's directly linked to the idea of shooing away fortune, or perhaps more religiously, disturbing the angels, believed to be present at night. Interestingly, as you mentioned, for the Arab world, there might be a practical pre-modern origin here too, like sweeping a dirt floor at night, being noisy, dusty, just inconvenient. But nevertheless, it has clearly been infused with supernatural meaning over time. By violating tawakkul and becoming a bid'ah with a false religious justification, this practice is considered a form of minor shirk.
And other examples, not cutting nails at night.
Yes, the belief one shouldn't cut their nails at night, as it's alleged to attract unwanted ghosts or malevolent spirits. And then there's that particularly intriguing cultural belief that stepping over a person will stunt their growth or bring them ill fortune.
Oh, right, and people step back over them to reverse it.
Exactly. This belief is so deeply ingrained that people who accidentally step over someone will often go to great lengths to step back over them in the opposite direction, believing they can thus reverse the tragedy or undo the perceived bad omen. The widespread prevalence of these ideas presents a significant challenge in Muslim-majority regions like Bangladesh, where a large portion of the population continues to believe in the evil eye, and consequently in these and other related superstitions, despite clear Islamic guidance to the contrary.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and frankly quite poignant. The lengths people will go to undo a perceived bad omen, even when it directly contradicts clear religious teaching. It really demonstrates the deep psychological hold these ingrained beliefs can have, sometimes overriding conscious religious understanding.
Mhm. And the case studies of Turkish and Nigerian superstitions provide particularly powerful illustrations of this cultural syncretism, where pre-Islamic beliefs aren't simply abandoned, but are instead integrated into society and frequently given a kind of pseudo-Islamic justification. The Nazar Banku, the Turkish evil eye bead, as we discussed, is an iconic symbol, deeply woven into daily life jewelry, clothes, buildings, gifts.
Believed to ward off the evil eye, but as we established, definitively shirk, because it attributes power to an object, not Allah.
Precisely. And similarly, the practice of knocking on wood, rooted in ancient beliefs about spirits and trees. In some regions, particularly Turkey, this pagan origin practice has become curiously conflated with the Islamic phrase, mashallah, God has willed it. It's performed as a syncretic ritual, announce good fortune, knock on wood, almost to protect it from envy or the evil eye. Again, this is a form of minor shirk, attributing influence over events to a piece of wood rather than solely to Allah.
When in Nigeria, belief in witchcraft seems widespread.
Yes, a widespread and deeply rooted belief in witchcraft persists across all religious groups, including Muslims. In northern parts, for instance, economic failures or personal misfortunes are frequently attributed to the actions of malevolent jinn. Now, while the existence of jinn is a core Islamic belief, the practice of accusing specific individuals of witchcraft and then performing elaborate Quranic exorcisms, ruqya, or using talismans to expel these spirits often represents a problematic blend of authentic Islamic theology and local traditional beliefs.
And using amulets with Quranic verses specifically against jinn. That falls into that debated category.
Exactly. And it's widely considered by many prominent jurists to be a means to pure haram, as it risks shifting a believer's reliance from Allah directly to a physical object. And what's truly fascinating here, really the central paradox, is that this is demonstrably not a failure of Islamic teaching itself. The teaching is exceptionally clear. Instead, it points to a profound challenge in its proper and consistent application. These are often generational beliefs, transmitted orally and culturally, so deeply ingrained they become part of identity. This creates a significant cognitive dissonance. People might intellectually understand the Islamic prohibition, but emotionally and habitually cling to old traditions.
So the prevalence of superstitions in these regions, despite strict Islamic prohibitions, highlights this deep cultural paradox.
It does. Islam universally condemns these beliefs, yet they are often more deeply entrenched in Muslim-majority societies than in many secularized Western ones. The solution, therefore, lies in a renewed, consistent, and deeply personal focus on proper education and spiritual understanding that can effectively displace these deeply ingrained traditions. #tagoutro.
So what does this all mean for us, having navigated this extensive deep dive? Our exploration today has truly highlighted how profoundly and, well, unequivocally, Islam addresses the complex and pervasive topic of superstition.
We've definitely uncovered a consistent and crystal clear Islamic position. It's rooted deeply in those foundational principles. Tawhid, the absolute oneness of Allah; tawakkul, complete reliance on Him; and the categorical rejection of shirk, associating partners with Allah; and bidah, religious innovation. Any belief or practice that attributes independent power, influence, or causality to anything other than Allah is, quite simply, forbidden.
And that, as we've explored in detail, encompasses a vast spectrum, from divination and fortune-telling to wearing amulets and charms, and even many of those seemingly innocent yet problematic cultural practices we just discussed in various regions. The prohibitions aren't mere cultural preferences or suggestions. They are direct commands and clear guidance derived from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah.
Absolutely. And the challenge, as we've noted, is significant and ongoing. Centuries of syncretic integration of pre-Islamic folklore and deeply ingrained cultural habits still exert a powerful influence on daily life, often blurring those critical lines between benign tradition and authentic religious principles.
But the good news, the incredibly powerful and profoundly clear alternative, is always available, isn't it?
Yeah.
A deep, profound, and utterly unshakable belief in Allah's sole and absolute control over all things. Instead of resorting to objects, rituals, or baseless fears, the authentic Islamic way to seek protection, achieve success, and find ease in life is through sincere supplication, to a profound and active reliance, tawakkul, and unwavering adherence to the clear guidance found in the Quran and Sunnah.
Exactly. This approach ultimately reinforces the timeless message that true strength, genuine peace, and lasting serenity come not from fleeting superstitions, but from placing your trust entirely and exclusively in the Creator, not in any aspect of His created things.
So for you, our insightful listener, here's perhaps a provocative thought to mull over long after this deep dive concludes. How might a truly profound and internalized understanding of Tawhid and Tawakkul fundamentally transform the way you perceive the luck or misfortune in your own life, guiding you perhaps from anxiety and apprehension toward a state of profound and unshakable serenity? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into such an essential topic. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and always strive to stay truly well informed.